Hello, my friends. I'm very excited to be recording this update today. Today is the 31st of May, 2020, and it's the Feast of Pentecost, which is when we celebrate when the Holy Spirit came upon the apostles after Jesus' death. And it was a real rebirth for them, and I feel like I'm having a real rebirth too, and I want to share some of that with you. Not too long ago, I shared an extemporaneous update, and I told you that it was very early in the morning, the sun hadn't even been up, and I felt called by the Holy Spirit to give you this update. And that was all true. I have an update to the update because while that was a calling I had that day, due to some very loving souls who have come to me, my understanding has been expanded. So originally, in update number 3, I stated that I was vehemently opposed to gathering and publishing the experiences of what it felt like to receive divine love in your soul. And the reason why I felt that way is I couldn't understand what the value was in it or who was being served. And my logic went like this. I said, first of all, if you've experienced this and you've had these extraordinary things happen, then you've already been blessed and you don't really need to necessarily share that, right? At least not widely and published in an anthology volume where all of these are together. I said it's good to share these things one-on-one or in small groups or as you feel called or they come up, but my thought was not to just publish them for wide distribution because I felt, number one, they were special, and number two, I didn't understand how that would serve. And the reason I said that was because I was quite keenly aware of a number of people who are new to divine love who were looking at all of these extraordinary experiences that people had had, and it was just calling them to feel a little bit less than in comparison and wondering why those things weren't happening to them. So that was my understanding at the time, and as I said, I have now had my understanding expanded very lovingly. So what I've come to learn is a couple of things, actually 3 things. So the first thing was that the impetus behind gathering all of these experiences was really to be a testament to divine love. These are testimonials, like shouting from the rooftops the glory of God and the wonder of the divine love experience and its availability, as well as to demonstrate how varied it is, which is to say so varied that it's unique for each individual. And even within an individual, every experience for that particular individual is unique. So it was an exciting, joyous testimony to the wonder of God's divine love. And that, of course, is beautiful. The next thing that I was reminded of was it is important not to hide our light under a bushel. It doesn't serve God or the purpose of love and creation, whether it's natural or divine, for anyone to make themselves smaller so that someone else doesn't feel bad in comparison. So that is an important truth that, of course, I knew, but wasn't putting into context with what I shared previously. And now I'm seeing, oh, okay, that's rounding out the picture a little bit. And the third aspect had to do with the concept of comparison. Now, what I had said previously was it's not a good idea for us to compare ourselves to anyone else, because you will always find someone who's doing better and someone who is doing not as well. That it's important for us on our journey as we grow to compare ourselves to ourselves today with ourselves yesterday. But I was gently reminded by another minister that comparison sparks expiation. So maybe at times, in the appropriate context, comparison can help us grow. That's a very valid point, and I wanted to share it with you today. So that brings up some other points. How do we tie in this expanded understanding with what I shared originally? Because there was truth in that as well, and there was value in it. So how do we tie the two together? Well, I think the most important thing to do is realize that our journeys are growth journeys, and they're not a straight line. They're somewhat circuitous, and it's different for every person, and it's different even for each person day to day and sometimes moment to moment. So what we always want to do is come to God seeking guidance that is appropriate for us in that moment. And what that means is a couple of things for me, from my perspective in this context. And the first one is go to God and ask, is this message or this book of testimonies or this anthology of testimonies, is this right for me right now in my journey? And go inside and ask God, because it may or may not be meant for you in that moment. And the same thing is true of any messages that you might receive. And even if it's not meant for you in that moment, it doesn't mean it won't be meant for you in a different moment. Or maybe it won't. Some things are meant for you, some things are meant for other people. And that's okay. I think it's very important to just keep asking God. And if something feels good, we can move in that direction, or doesn't feel good, move away from it. But even that, we have to still carefully discern, because are we talking about feels good from a hedonistic perspective, from an animalistic perspective, from a pure pleasure perspective, or are we talking about feels good and right and expansive because it feels loving, it feels like it's moving toward God? And are we talking about, oh, it feels bad as in it feels unholy or unhealthy? Or are we saying it feels bad because it feels like in this moment I'm having my eyes open and I'm feeling convicted, which is to say it's time for me to expiate, which is to say it's time for me to understand a way that I have been out of harmony with God. So that may not feel great, but it may be the best thing for us in that moment. So again, context matters, discernment matters, and there is never going to be a strict right or wrong for these kinds of nuances that I'm talking about right now. It's going to be what is best for your soul right here, right now, in this moment. So it's not about judging good or bad per se in particular. It's more about discerning appropriateness and readiness in this moment at this time. So we need to each be sure that we are following our own guidance, and also that we're not trying to push ahead from a point of mindfulness or an ego sense of needing to accomplish something. We don't want to get out ahead of our guidance. We want to patiently await for that inflowing of inspiration and a powerful sense of action and activity that is crystal clear. And then, like a hot knife through butter, we want to go for that right away. But if we have something less than that, if it's an inkling, then move a little slowly and a little carefully. And otherwise, if it's just us thinking or feeling impatient, it's much, much better to just sit and wait until we get that point of clarity and that point of guidance. And the last thing I want to share in this update is it's so vital for all of us to remember that wherever we are on this journey, God meets us where we are. God meets us where we are. So you will receive just the guidance and the tools and the healing modalities that are required and best suited for your journey in this moment. And those are not to be compared with what someone else might be bringing forth or calling toward themselves in the same moment, because it is unique. And that means that whatever is available, natural love or divine love, can still be beneficial for our soul growth and our soul development in that moment. And with that, I will leave you with a prayer for the blessing of God's love in your life. God bless.